wisdom and your truth, and may we see something beautiful happen tonight. Amen. Amen.
Thank you. I think we're all very excited to be here tonight without the plexiglass between us and with no masks. So congratulations to everybody in New Brunswick for going green. We celebrated with fireworks the New Brunswick Day weekend. I think we owe a big thanks to the fire department for getting that organized and setting them up and doing all that's involved with that, and for the staff here for getting us organized to have them to do that. So as we've moved into green and into August, I think we've all noticed the pickup with tourism here on the island, which is really good to see the economy booming again, and good to see everybody here. So I will leave it at that and move right on to disclosure of conflict of interest.
I declare a conflict of interest on 12.1, General Operating Fund, Llewellyn Press Limited.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Let's move on to adoption of the minutes of July 5th, 2021 of the regular council meeting.
Madam Mayor, I almost said Mr. Mayor. Oh. Madam Mayor, on the last page of the last full page of the minutes, the motion, it says moved by Councillor Greg Russell, seconded by Councillor Philman Green, to hold back 15% on next year's line striping until the correction is made on Ingalls Head Road, and to make a 15% standard holdback on all contracts with DTI until they are completed. It was my memory, and I checked with Councillor Russell, and we wanted to put that 15% holdback on all contracts, not just with DTI, pending, satisfactory completion of the project.
Okay. So can we have a motion to accept the minutes with that amendment, or do we need to redo that motion?
See if there's any other amendments, and then we can just do.
Anything else? So then is there a motion to accept the minutes with that amendment? Moved by Councillor Boyd.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Layton. Question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Item number 6, additions to the agenda. Councillor Russell?
Yes, I have two additions. Under item 12.1, two invoices, one from Fireworks FX Inc. for $7,500. That's for the fireworks for the event just mentioned. The second is an invoice from AARC, a pavement preservation company, and that's crack sealing, runway and taxiway crack sealing at the airport. Total amount due, $20,820.12. I move those be added to the agenda.
You heard the motion by Councillor Russell. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Fitzsimmons. Question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Item number 7 is we have the RCMP report.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and councillors. I just have a few things to go over with you tonight. Looking first at our kind of file count from your last meeting. I wasn't here for it, but from July 5th till today. This year we're at 72 files. The same period last year we were at 110 files, and so on first glance I was a little confused because the last few meetings I've been here we've had more files than last year, and we chalked it up to COVID things. This year I looked at it a little bit just to see what was the cause for that, and I think that it was due last year we had 37 files were traffic tickets and warnings that were given out, and this year during that time we only had 2. So that is a large majority of that difference we see in the files there. This year only having 2 in that time period. Obviously, we would like to be out in the community doing a little bit more enforcement and education and that with the drivers and keeping the roads safe. But we're seeing some issues with our resourcing at the office, so we're focusing more on just the calls that are coming in right now. Looking at those numbers, I just broke them down into some of the top types of files we had. We had 7 calls mischief related. 6 were quarantine checks or isolation checks that we were doing on people. 4 were for uttering threats, and 3 were for theft. And I just wanted to mention quickly on that. I thought that was quite low, considering I've been talking to people and hearing from a lot of different people about thefts that are going on the island. Unfortunately, that talk is just amongst people, and it's not being brought to us at the RCMP detachment. It's very important that people do report what's going on. If we don't know about it, one, we can't do anything about it, and it also just makes it look like there isn't as much crime going on the island as really is happening. So even if the people of the island don't think that we can't do anything about whatever the specific thing was, something was stolen, whether it be big or small, it's important to still report those to us. So that we're aware of what's going on in the community. Oftentimes somebody comes up to talk to me about something that's going on, and I have to say, sorry, nobody's actually reported that to me. I don't really know anything about that. So it's very important that give us a call, at least it can be documented, and it's accurately represented what's going on the island, both for just us at the local detachment, but also for our management on the mainland when they look at what's going on here. In case anybody who's listening wants, or it can be posted as well, the regular complaint line to call in a complaint. I mean, if it's an emergency, always call 911. But if it's just a regular complaint, it's 1-888-506-7267. And I already briefly mentioned this about our resourcing issues right now. We're going to be going through some transitions probably through the fall. The soonest one is Constable Bryant, which is he's going to be leaving us this month. He's been quite involved in the community, so it's going to be sad to see him go. With him leaving, it is going to bring us down to the actual allotted amount of officers for the island. Right now, we've been in a good position having 1 extra person here. With Constable Bryant, it's going to bring us down to how many we're supposed to. And just due to training and vacation and some injuries from different officers, that's what's brought our numbers down a little bit as well. So going forward through the rest of this month and maybe into the fall, you might see some different faces in that on the island. Don't be afraid. We're just bringing in some people as we need it from the mainland. They'll come in for a few shifts and then they'll go back out. So pending any questions, that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes. Just something that's been banging around in my head a little bit. We're somewhat concerned with our roads and some of the conditions. Have you, or through your accident reports, or could you find out, are there any particular dangerous places where bushes should be cut back, or the road is slippery, or the water's pooling and things like that?
Right, nothing off the top of my head for a specific area concern that I've noticed myself. I have noticed just driving on the roads, there are some areas, I think I was noticing yesterday as I was driving, Hill Road around the backside there, the trees are quite close to the road, and if there are animals out, especially at night, that can be dangerous, but it's something I can definitely look into to see if there is a specific area that we're noticing more accidents than other areas.
Budgets are somewhat limited, and we'd like to target what we could.
Anyone else?
I do, actually. Corporal Stewart, if you don't mind, can you just have the conversation with council with what you and I discussed this morning about the weekend?
Yes, actually,
Please.
I did mean to include that, and I forgot it when I was doing up my paper here. So just in regards to the concert that was going on Friday and Saturday night, we made sure there was a couple of us on through the evening, Friday night. We drove by a couple times earlier on. I wasn't able to stop in to chat with anybody. We ended up getting busy with a few other calls, but we didn't get any calls specifically to the concert for anything. There was one call kind of at the end of the concert. There was somebody who was causing some issues and got in a vehicle and left, and that was reported, which was good. And then Saturday night, we were able to head in there for a few minutes and talk to some of the volunteers that were running it and just some of the people who were in attendance there. And people had good spirits and were enjoying themselves. And that was the only time we had to go there. We didn't get called back for any issues or problems. I noticed as even just driving away from the concert right at the 776, obviously you could hear the music, but you didn't have to go very far down the road, and it actually seemed like the noise levels were quite acceptable. So
Thanks. Anyone else? Thank you. Okay, item number 8, old business, 8.1 Anchorage Park Project. Acting CAO Chris Rayner to address.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I was tasked after the last council meeting to reach out to Charlie Sabadoff about the letter that was written. And after reaching out with him, he actually came into the office and we sat down and had a good conversation. We were trying to see if we could kind of help facilitate a meeting between the Anchors, the Trails group and Charlie and the village. But after speaking with Charlie, he didn't feel the need to meet because, as he put it, he's not part of any anti-trail group. This was just a personal letter that he wrote with some of his concerns, even though we had a few people listed on that. But at the end of the day, he's not against the trail. He uses that trail probably as much as anybody. But a couple of the things that he did worry about, which is probably a lot of people sitting on the table has the same concern, is environment as well as just kind of public consultation to make sure that it's what people want for sure. But so I met with the Trails Committee last week, and as a result from that, the Trails Committee put out a letter. I forwarded that on to everybody so that you had it. And I think that kind of touches on one of the aspects for the community support, because it did say that they've had over 50 letters of support and an overwhelming amount, $48,000 towards their fundraising. So that certainly speaks volumes. But as far as the environmental part, I'm going to ask Garrett, if he doesn't mind, just coming up to the podium just to give everyone a little better update on kind of where they are. Garrett?
Alrighty. Thanks for having me back. Right now, things are running a little slower than I'd like. It being August in the summertime, everyone at Environment Local Government is kind of staggering their vacations. So the person I'm talking to one week is gone by the next. But I had a good meeting with Joni Burton just over the phone, and she kind of gave me a rundown of what we might need to do this, to make this happen. And it was a long list, but it was nothing that is unmanageable by any means. Of course, it's very thorough, what we need done, and that includes having people down to assess the site and that kind of stuff. But I've sent off, it was a nice document. It had pictures and lots of information on all of the water courses that met their working definition. That falls under their purview there. So that's being reviewed by them, and eventually we'll get someone down from ELG to examine the site. It's possible we might need an outside consultant to come look at the site as well. But again, that's just for more of a preliminary assessment as to the condition of the site. So things may be a little slower, but it's certainly nothing unmanageable and nothing that we aren't comfortable getting done.
Did you say when we met the other day that you've identified 8 possible water courses according to their criteria,
Yes.
which is
Yep,
soil and width?
Yes, yep. So it needs to be at least 1/2 meter in width, and it needs to be defined by rock or soil at the bottom. So anything that's just a stream through kind of some grass does not count. It needs to have defined rock or soil at the base. So that really narrowed it down. and that part became a lot less of a worry. The only concern now is just having them, they recently changed the act on the wetlands and watercourses stuff, and so now basically, even if it's not categorized as a wetland on that GONB map, they still kind of like to have that area surveyed to see if it is or not. It's no longer just by what's on the map. So that is our next obstacle.
So I think one of the biggest things kind of that come out of the meeting the other day was just the fact that the Trails Committee wanted to emphasize that even though there's probably 40 kilometers of trails on Grand Manan, none of those trails are accessible. So the emphasis on having a trail like the Boardwalk Trail that's accessible for everybody would be great. And there was a letter that came in from a young family who has a young child that's in a wheelchair that said that he can't imagine what it'd be like for his daughter to be able to go in the woods on that trail.
Yeah, it's something that is important to a lot of people, whether it's new families and they've got a baby with a stroller. Like I know my sister just had a kid and she would love to be able to take a stroller out there, but with COVID and the width of the boards being hardly wider than what this podium is, navigating a stroller with oncoming traffic is not easy. Same thing for wheelchairs, and of course other people with accessibility devices.
So we had met with our MLA the other day, and I think that she alluded to that there's some funding that was going to be set aside for that trail project. There was a question that came up of whether or not that money was earmarked for the trail, but the condition was on approval or a letter of approval from council. We've since reached out to her to get clarification on that, and that is not the case. Now, at the end of the day, a letter of support from council will go a long ways, but something that's not necessary in order to get the funding.
Okay. Any comments, questions?
In lieu of what we've heard tonight and in the last month, seeing that all the concerns were basically environmental and they're going to be addressed, I would move that the village write a letter in support of this project.
You heard the motion by Councillor Green. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Greenlaw. Question?
I would like to also add to that letter of support, or maybe this requires a separate motion, but I think it's something we should look into possibly donating financially after looking at our budget this fall for the continuing phases that they're working on. And I don't know, like I said, I don't know if we can tack that on to Councillor Green's motion or if it needs to be another motion.
If we're looking at next year's budget, we can just have a note in the minutes that we look at it at that time, I think, versus amending the motion, if that's acceptable?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, any other question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. 10-minute open session. Thanks, Garrett, sorry.
No, we really appreciate it, so thank you very much.
Okay, now we'll go to the 10-minute open session. All right, since no one's rushing the podium, I'd suggest we move on to item number 10, new business, 10.1, gas tax, capital investment plan. Councillor Russell to address.
Okay. The proposed upgrades at the transfer station, I'm talking about the new baler, the new electrical doors, et cetera, that we've talked about several times. It's been submitted for gas tech fund funding. We've been advised that we should, to get this funding, we need to make some amendments, a couple of amendments. It's kind of an odd process, but what we need to do is to go back to 2014, 2018, 5-year capital investment plan for GFT, that's the Gas Tax Fund Administrative Agreement, which you all have a copy in your package, and add the words with respect to establishing, and it's under and/or two. I don't know, I don't really think I need to read all this, it's all in your package, okay? But it's establishing with infrastructure to recycle cardboard, paint, electronics, blah, blah, you know, fishing industry and that. And then it talks about expected outcomes. So I'm gonna, and the process is, if we make, I'm gonna move in a minute that we amend this, this year, that 5-year plan. It's submitted to Fredericton. They will approve or disapprove it. We think it will be approved. Then it comes back, and hopefully next month, I'll have a very similar agenda item where we'll update the current 2019 to 2023 agreement, submit that to Fredericton, and hopefully shortly thereafter, some funds will show up for that work. It's a little different, but that's the suggestion that we'd follow to make this happen. And it's pretty significant dollars, so I'm going to make a motion that we amend the 2014-2018 administrative agreement as per the attached.
You heard the motion by Councillor Russell. Do we have a seconder?
I second it.
Seconded by Councillor Brown. Question?
I have a question. So are we saying, are we removing the waste decomposition system, that big composter that we were going to have at one point, and
No.
replacing it with this?
No, it's an
project?
and/or. If you read that, it's and/or. Okay?
Yeah, I was just wondering why we would leave that in there, I guess. I mean, I don't mind that we do, I just didn't know why we would, because I thought that was scrapped.
No.
That's what I'm wondering.
In the current agreement, there's an item 7, which is the reference to the baler, the electrical upgrade, and the different things at the transfer station. If we get this amended, the current one, the one I have in front, 2014-18, that item 7 will disappear in the current agreement.
Okay.
And it becomes an and/or
Okay.
along with the decomposition system.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
And so then when we complete one of them, we can...
Yeah.
Councillor Russell, we have some corrected wording on the motion. If I pass you this, could we look at amending that motion just so we have the proper language around it, if that's agreeable?
So what,
Just read the motion as it says we
oh,
move
this
to
is,
adopt.
this
Yeah,
is the motion that was
Yep.
adopted, okay.
Yep.
Uh,
we have to make the same motion, same wording again, just to
Okay.
be accepted.
Okay.
Because nothing is simple with the gas tax fund.
It says 5-year capital investment plan for the GFT administrative agreement, Village of Grand Manan, 2014-2018 resolution, 2014-August 7, moved by Councillor Morris and seconded by Councillor Green, that the document entitled Village of Grand Manan 5-year capital investment plan for the GFT administrative agreement 2014-2018 be adopted. Motion carried.
So you're moving to amend that motion.
Yes.
Are you okay with that?
Do I second it?
Yeah, if you're
I
okay with that.
second
Okay. Everybody understand? Is everybody as confused as I am, maybe, is the question about what we're doing? All right. Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Oh, okay. Item 10.2, call for board members for UMNB and the Swallowtail Keeper Society. Acting CEO Chris Rayner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I can scratch one of those off. I think UMNB has been covered by Councillor Boyd, as he's looking at me with...
I think so. I know there was a discussion, and then I have no problem with being the representative, but there was a discussion and never kind of went any further, but I have no problem with my name being put forward.
Okay, perfect. They had just asked for someone to sit on their board, as well as there was an email that came from, I believe, Kenny, about SKS, just looking possibly for a member of council to sit on the Swallowtail Keepers Society board as well. So I'll just leave that out there.
Do we have any volunteers to sit on that board for council?
I could sit on.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Fitzsimmons. Okay. Very good. Let's move on to 10.3, recreational vehicles, use of recreational vehicles on highways. Councillor Greg Russell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At the end, on our June 14th, 21 council meeting, at the end of Corporal Stewart's report, he suggested we look at a bylaw to allow, I'll call them ATVs, to use highways to access trail, maybe come from one trail up the shoulder and along. So after that, I was talking to Corporal Stewart and asked if he'd send me a few ideas of what some wording might be in the bylaw, and you'll see a great big happy smile on my face. This is his few. Thank you. This is his few words. He actually did send some of his own, which is a guideline as to what we need to do. I'm not going to read all this, by the way. And then Van Johnson, who is the trail coordinator for, I think, the province for ATVs, he says, Corporal Stewart, thank you for reaching out. I'm very happy to provide any assistance I can. There are currently 12 municipalities with ATV or off-road vehicle bylaws in place, another 9 awaiting approval, and a few more such as Grand Manan that are in the beginning stages of developing one. That was interesting. But just as a side note, which I thought it was interesting, this is from Van Johnson. As a side note, you may already be aware that the Trek It ATV crew will begin filming season 3 shortly, beginning in Grand Manan and circumnavigating the province from there. I look forward to the time when we can promote Grand Manan as a destination for the ATV tourist industry. Providing legal access to amenities such as food, lodging, fuel, camping, etc. is a huge step toward making that a reality. I thought that was quite interesting, and the tourism team here might be interested in this will be by the way, I didn't make copies for everyone. We also sent a note from this was addressed to Corporal Stewart from David Hatt. He's the president of the Charlotte County ATV Club. Yes, Grand Manan area is under umbrella. They call them highway usage permits, HOPs, are doable through public safety with local council backing, and I won't read all that. Here's Natasha Landry, administrative assistant, showing support. He also sent actually 4 of the bylaws. This is the town of Manning in province of Alberta. That's their bylaw. Here's High Level. Is High Level in Alberta?
Yes.
Okay, High Level is in Alberta. Their bylaw. There's the town of Oromocto. There's the town of Sackville. And when my poor little printer started up yesterday, here's a 59-page report, which is the Off-Road Vehicle Act from the province of New Brunswick. Okay? Thank you, Corporal Stewart, for your few words. I am more than prepared to pass this file along in completion to possibly the bylaw committee. Can I make this presentation? Okay.
Did you want us to record it, like to photograph it just for posterity?
It's
Or?
a photo op moment, but I think it's important because I think, Corporal, if you want to add any words about, it may cut down some of these chases, where people think they're breaking the law, just going from trail to trail. Of course, there's others that are abusing the highways, and that won't cover them. Nothing will ever, Yeah, do you have any extra you'd like to add to that?
I don't really have too much else to add other than what I had said a few meetings ago. It's an issue that's been brought forward. There are complaints that we've received about ATV usage, dirt bikes and four-wheelers and that. Noise is a lot of it. The complaints, now this won't necessarily bring the noise levels down too much, but my hope is that if people are allowed to use the roads, the majority of people will use them more respectfully, and therefore the noise will be lower. They won't have to be driving really fast up the road because they're afraid we're going to pull them over and give them a bunch of tickets or tow their vehicle. If they're able to use the roads respectfully and legally, my hope is that they'll do so at a more reasonable speed and therefore volume. So I know it is going to be some work to go through it, the bylaw committee, to go through and determine the wording that they want to use and the authorities they want to provide the residents of the island. I'm happy to work alongside them and provide whatever assistance I can.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think maybe just for clarity for people watching, this doesn't mean that this is an automatic thing that happens as of the end of the meeting today, that there is some work to go into it, and it's not for free reign to drive from one end of the island to the other, but simply to go from trail to trail, just before everybody gets really, really excited for something. Is there anything else on that one before we move on? Councillor Turner.
I just thought that it might be good for public safety and bylaw to work together on that. It just seems like it would be a natural fit to me.
I think given the, okay, despite the fact that the two councillors are, but I think given the amount of work that we've given the bylaw committee, it probably wouldn't hurt to have a few extra hands lifting on that one as well. So good suggestion. Sorry, Councillor Boyd.
We just made agreement.
Yep. Sure. All right. Anything else on recreational vehicles? Okay. Number 10.4, Asset Management Report 2020. Councillor Russell, you should just leave your mic on, by the way.
I'm going to be polite and turn it off once in a while. This is the full Village of Grand Manan Asset Report. I made this report was adopted, when did we have the date? In the November 2020 meeting, this was adopted. It was handed to me a couple of weeks ago by Rob and Chris with big smiles on their faces. But anyway, I've been through it a few times, and I just gave you, just so the new council would be updated as to what it includes. I'm just going to read just the executive summary to start. It says the Village of Grand Manan provides an array of essential services to residents and business owners such as recreational facilities and general governance. However, present fiscal, social, and environmental challenges make delivering these services more difficult. Further, with aging infrastructure, stricter standards, and increasing risk to infrastructure, good infrastructure management practices are paramount now more than ever to communities delivering quality services. To ensure efficient and effective infrastructure management, the Village of Grand Manan is developing an asset management plan. The community of Grand Manan was previously mandated for federal gas tax funding Phase 3, 214-218, to produce a PSAB 3150 document containing an exhaustive list of community assets along with its depreciation cycle as a requirement to continue receiving federal gas tax funding. To be eligible for federal gas tax funding for future phases, the development of the asset management plan contained herein is required. In July of 2017, the province of New Brunswick released the Guide to Asset Management Planning for Local Governments, which set out a bunch of rules. So Crandall and Associates did that. The next handout in that, I just give you a copy of the Business Center, which gives you an idea of what's contained in this report for every asset. If you go you'll go to 7.3, it talks about ongoing projects and 2020 action items. It lists, there's 5 years of action items there with each of the ongoing amounts. For example, 2020, Swallowtail Lighthouse gift shop, storage in front of electrical panels. It's that type of things they've identified. 2020, it was $1,200. The current year, if the next page is 7.4.1, $14,300. Just an example. Castelia Hall needs a portable fire extinguisher. These are not big ticket items, but they're meant to make sure that these assets we have are safe, both for the public and that. And there's actually 5 years of action, so that's something we need to consider when we put together next year's budget. But we got a couple of years, it looks like, to make sure that we do action these items. And at the end of the document, your last 2 pages is the municipal asset management policy, which I understand in November, when the council accepted or adopted this report, that included this policy, which requires an annual review of our assets and associated budget item numbers. I did notice a couple of deficiencies in the report. One is there's no mention of Dark Harbor, which is certainly an asset, and the village playgrounds are not included. So I think CEO Chris has been in contact with, or has been in touch with Crandall to see whether we should, make an amendment to this and include that. So, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, no, I just sent an email out to Crandall just asking about getting them back down to take a look, because it's been some time since we went over this, and after Councillor Russell brought up the fact that Dark Harbor and the playgrounds were not included, I can tell you, as most of you know from recreation, those playgrounds certainly have a lot of value. They're very expensive to put in, very expensive to maintain.
And
so
they need maintenance.
And they need constant maintenance,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. So I really don't think, that's just an update of there's another item coming up soon on budgets, and, you may use some of this if it pertains to your particular committee when it comes to budgets, but I thought I was going to make a motion, but it's already been accepted, but I think it's important that we all know. And I think it's lists, without Dark Harbor in our playgrounds, village is in control of over $14 million worth of assets. So it's a pretty big ticket item number. And they do require maintenance.
For sure. Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Russell? Councillor Turner.
I'm just curious on the business center on table 512, like it has the components like roofing, doors, windows, all date of installation is 1914. I think we've done pretty well. Estimated life was 30 years. It's outlived most people I know.
Oh, I know.
But
Yeah.
it just...
No, there's some really, by the way, if any one of you want a copy of this, you can see CEO Chris. I had a copy made, but it's a whole lot of reading of numbers just like this.
Okay. I just didn't know why they would put the components as that date. I understand if that's probably when the building was built.
Yeah, and
or-
all the theory and the guidelines are laid out by the province. Is a roof typically has a 30-year life. Okay, this one has to have a 90-year life or something, but those are just book values based on asset, which are typical engineering numbers. That doesn't mean you can't go longer. As you can see, many of them are much longer.
No, I'm just curious. I'm sure that roof has been done since 1914. And those windows weren't there.
Well, they only had the records they could access to determine. And I think you want to comment about taking them around? Didn't you take them?
Yeah, I had the task of taking these people around to visit all the assets, and I think in any case where we didn't have the actual documents that we could find that proved that the roof was done in 2004. They just went back to what they felt was the original date of the building, so.
Okay. Cladding was done in 1983, because I did it as a student project.
Do you still have the receipts from when that happened? Because we could really update it.
It just looked funny to see like windows, vinyls, 1914. I was like,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, thanks, Greg.
Some remember, I guess there was a bunch of work done in 2014.
Well, I don't know if it was 2014, I just wonder if it's a typo. But since I've been here, they've been all new windows, painting, floors up at the business center, maybe a roof. I remember Joe Springer's did, he was there all one summer, did a bunch of work. It was like, we got money back for like an efficiency MV.
You need your microphone on.
Can't start over. Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, with the volume of the numbers, I'm sure there's other numbers that are wrong. But the bottom line is, they do have there's a nice 5-year plan of what we need to do. And that's based on criticality, which means, for example, a fire extinguisher, that's a critical item that should be actioned soon. And, or, just something that needs to be repaired. It takes, there's 2 or 3 factors. It's all in the front end of this, if you want to read that part of it.
Anything else? Thank you, Councillor Russell. Item number 10.6, highway line striping.
Oh, sorry.
I like to jump over things. 10.5, sorry. You can just keep the mic if you want.
You have in front of you bylaw 3702, which is remuneration of mayor and councilors. Specifically, I guess I'm raising the issue of there's an extra fee allowance for councilors of $50 per meeting to a maximum of 30 meetings per year. I think the 30 is unreasonable. As of tonight, I'm at 15. I'm sure everyone around this table is plus or minus 1 or 2 from 15 or more. Councillor Fitzsimmons is 30 plus. The last number I knew was 16, but that was 2 weeks ago, so it's likely closer to 30 plus 20 would be a guess. I'm going to make a motion that for councillors and mayor, that the maximum read 50 meetings per year on a pooled basis. So at the end of year, if a councillor or 2 is under the 50, that number would go into a pool and be parceled out to the ones over 50 on a ratio per ratio basis.
You heard the motion by Councillor Russell. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Fitzsimmons. Question?
So your motion is to refer this to the bylaw committee to draft an amendment to our compensation bylaw.
Yeah, 37-02.
Anything else? All those in favor?
Oh, just
Oh, sorry.
sorry, wrong side of the table.
Yep.
So what you're saying is you want to move our maximum up to 50 and then an additional X number of dollars over 50, or just stops at 50?
It stops at 50, but it would go into at the end of year, if a particular councillor or 2 is under 50. Let's say there's 2 at 40, right? So that'd be 10 plus 10 would go into a pool and split out to the ones over 50 on a ratio basis. So basically, it would be 50 meetings per count typically, because I'm sure that even 50, we are going to exceed, every one of us will exceed 50 if we continue at the pace we've been going.
Okay. Councillor Boyd, you're okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Any, Councillor Turner?
Just kind of curious as to why there is a limit if they're legitimate meetings. Like, why are we saying basically, it sounds like you're saying, if you do this much work, we believe it's legitimate, but if you do this much, we aren't buying it. And to me, that puts pressure on people, because, I mean, it's not a big paying job to start with. So to say, if you reach this limit by November, anything you do after that is unpaid or possibly partially paid, seems a bit unfair to me.
Councillor Green?
I believe the number of 30, I won't say it was a dartboard game, but it was for budgetary limits.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, what's a number that seems reasonable? I don't think it was a hard and fast discussion, just to make it, so we could get a number to put in for a budget line item.
Even the 50 that I'm proposing is a dark, I mean, I just picked 50. I mean, I have no rationale why. It's more than 30. That was it. And it's not going to, we are all, I would be very surprised if we're not all over the 50. So, and I agree with you.
I guess I'm just wondering if we might set a number, but say any above that need to be approved by the mayor or something, or CAO or something like that, just to make it not hard and fast that when you reach this, you don't get paid anymore, I just think it might be nice to have some leeway there that, might kind of keep it in check if things were getting out of hand, but still allow for people to do their job and get paid for it.
I wonder, not to put the treasurer on the spot, but is there a way to go back and maybe look at the average number of meetings over the last few years?
We definitely can, and it's never been, like we've always been, since I've been here, it's in the bylaw, it's 30.
Mhm.
It's never been that. People never reach out except for a few. There's a couple that do, so there was a motion made a few years ago that if you reach 30, you're done, but then at the end of the year, if there's money left, you get paid for your extra meetings. So I think just all Greg's saying is it'll be 50, and when we're done, if there's money left, you get paid for your extra meetings. I think it's just, like Bowman said, you gotta say something so you can put a monetary line in the budget. But it's never been, most people have like 14 all year, but like you guys have 400 already.
I feel like we did that the first week, but that was just me. Do we want, okay, so we have a motion on the floor with a seconder. Are we ready to vote, or is there more discussion, or do we want to amend the motion?
I'd like to make another, just keeping the topic going. I know some other councils do a monthly and also do an hourly. I wonder if it's something we want to take the numbers, meeting numbers completely out of it and just say, this is what you get per month. And at the end of the year, if there's any extra, then I don't know how to address it. But I feel like a monthly, then you're covered for your month, and that's what it is, whether you do 20 meetings that month or 2.
Acting CAO, you have your mic on.
Yeah, I turned it off, but I
Okay.
had it back on.
I thought you had something to say, so.
I do, and listen, anyone correct me if I'm wrong, this is my first meeting in this chair, and if I'm speaking when I'm not supposed to be speaking, let me know. But I'm just wondering if Councillor Russell wants to put in his motion that maybe have the bylaw committee come back by the September meeting with a recommendation, because Councillor Green, correct me if I'm wrong, procedurally wise, does that have to go through the first and second reading, which would be in September, and then the third reading, which would be the following month? So if this is something they want to get in the short term quite quickly, then it'd be nice for the bylaw committee to have something back here for the regular meeting in September. Just my thought.
Councillor Russell, do you want to amend your motion to include that, or do you want to leave as is, or?
I would amend it, my motion to include that.
And I can't remember who seconded. Thank you.
I've got to hear that motion again, because
Yeah.
just I amended that.
Yeah.
I'm not connecting all the dots, sorry.
Okay. Back over to you, Councillor Russell. Your
Uh,
motion again.
Make a motion that the maximum allowance, or the maximum number of meetings per year be raised to 50 from 30, and that's above regular meetings. And that the bylaw committee have a proposal ready for the September meeting. Did I get close?
The chair of the bylaw committee's making faces at you.
I'm looking at you, Councillor Green.
Well, that's just because I'm across.
I can feel her look, but I can't see it. This isn't a fire that needs to be put out immediately, but I would like to see, it worked into the bylaws.
Deputy Mayor Fitzsimmons, are you okay with
Could I amend my amendment? I take out the word September meeting, a future meeting.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
I'm conflicted as to whether we're waiting for the bylaw committee to come up with a proposal or we're actually changing it from 30 to 50 with this motion. And I don't know how to vote as a result of that.
My interpretation of the motion, which is always dangerous, is that Councillor Russell is moving that it be changed to 50 meetings per year and the bylaw committee to come back at a future meeting with the amended bylaw to that.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that? Okay. All right. Are we all sufficiently confused? Councillor Boyd.
I just wonder if now that we've kind of opened this jar of worms, if it's something we want to possibly table till budget time and look, and this is, I'll go with what the will of council is, but look at how our pay structure is overall. Like, do we want to stay with this per meeting fee? Do we want to go per month? Do we want to go per hour or whatever? Maybe this is a larger discussion to be had at budget time, perhaps.
I would agree with Councillor Boyd on reviewing all of the options that we have before we rewrite the bylaw.
But then you get into the committees are busier than other committees, then you have I think the meeting is the way to go. Every meeting you get paid so much. I mean, some committees are way busier than others, and to make it fair, you should be paid for what you actually do and not lumped into an average payment, I guess, for a monthly. I don't know. That's just my take on it, I guess.
The original intent, and it probably still is the intent, is all councillors and the mayor, we get an honorarium for our monthly meetings and that type of thing. The additional meetings was supposed to compensate and encourage people to get involved in committees and do that type of thing. So you were talking about a monthly thing. That's your base amount. Your $1,500, I think it is, isn't it? That's your monthly meeting, and anything above and beyond that. We always had councillors that carried a heavy load, and we had some that really didn't carry much of a load, and it was trying to level that out that was the intent of it. Whether it's accomplished that or not, I guess that's another word.
Okay, so at this point, we have a motion on the floor to increase the number of meetings to 50, referred to the bylaw committee to come back at some point. I'm going to suggest we call for the vote, and if there's a feeling to do something different, then that will be reflected. Is that fair? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded?
Nay.
Motion carried. Okay. All right. Item 10.6, highway lane striping.
At a previous meeting, when we were discussing about at a previous meeting, we talked about paying our line striping company and that, and it come up about the line striping down on Ingalls Head Road. near Chubby Brown's house. I had a little free time one day, so I stopped with my tape measure, and in front of you, you have a diagram of some of the numbers. I was down to Whitehead last week, and I really started to question my own numbers, so I stopped and remeasured and actually found a set of numbers even worse than what have you before. And just for people that out there that don't have it, the center line is not in the center of the road, and going towards Ingalls Head by I call a civic number Route 126. I call it the old Foss Harvey house. Going down on the right is 112 inches. On the left side is 144 inches. The worst one is close to Chubby Brown's house. Left side 110 inches. Left side 155 inches. So that center line right there is about 2 feet off center. When I was doing my measurements, Chubby Brown was in his garage, and of course he come out to see what that crazy guy was doing with the tape measure, walking around the middle of the road. So we had quite a chat, and he said when he used to snowplow a couple of times in heavy bad storms, he was plowing down there, and he didn't go off the road, but it was, he went off the side a little bit, and it was a big storm. He was following the center line, and of course the center line was 2 feet towards the ditch. And he said, who should know this corner any better than me? So I guess, and I get thinking about it, do we really care as a council where those lines are? But we pay for them, so I guess they're our lines, and I think they should be in the middle of the road. So I guess what I'm going to make a motion, I move that the CAO send a letter to the district DOTI, District Engineer David Thompson, and All Season Sports, who are the line striping company, to request the lane striping on the Ingalls Head Road be corrected no later than next year's striping work, or sooner if the engineer so determines. The letter should also CC the local DOTI supervisor, Dennis Green.
It's Four Seasons Sports.
Four?
Four.
Four Seasons? I got the wrong Four Seasons. Yes.
You heard the motion by Councillor Russell. Do we have a seconder?
A second.
Seconded by Councillor Layton. Question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. And since the RCMP's here, I won't make the joke about it banking for my speed when I go around the corner. So, item 10.7, it's the 2022 budget. Councillor Russell.
The village budget this year is due November the 15th, which is about a month and a half earlier than usual. Committees with budget proposals are to be that have any budget proposals should be submitted to the office no later than September the 30th this year. This gives the staff a month to compile the figures and be ready for the November the 2nd council meeting. And again, I've included a handout just so we have some uniformity for the office to deal with, rather than, so if you are in a committee that has a budget line item number, it's committee, budget line number, a budget amount, a brief description, and the committee chair would sign it and turn them in no later than September the 30th. And then sometime after that, shortly after that, we will see a budget. I mean, this isn't paper clips and that kind of thing. Most of the budget, the staff will generate that based on past expenses and all that. But because I'm part of Recreation and Parks, and in our bylaw it says that the committee will submit budget proposals for consideration at budget time, and I'm sure other committees likely have similar wording. So anyway, that's and someone just mentioned a little bit earlier about something about ready for budget, and I started to add, well, that's going to be talked about very quickly. So there's our budget action item. It's time to get at it. It gives us 2 months as committees to get our reviews done, get our submissions in, and here we go.
Are you making that a motion that that be a formal?
I make that a
Form?
motion that we use this form to submit our budget proposals for this year.
The motion by Councillor Russell. Seconder?
Sure.
Seconded by Councillor Green. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded? Motion carried. 10.8, Grand Manan fuel price. Councillor Russell.
Last one. In an earlier meeting, we all received in our packages a letter dated May, this is from the New Brunswick Energy and Utilities Board. It was dated May the 18th, 2021. Mayor Dennis Green, Village of Grand Manan, blah, blah, blah. Dennis had written concerning delivery costs of unregulated petroleum products. And I'll just read one sentence in it. It's down at the bottom of the first page. It said, please note that in the same matter, the board ruled that the maximum delivery cost for the rest of the province should be increased to 3.5 cents per liter, and so the delivery cost differential between the parish of Grand Manan and the rest of the province is less than 5 cents per liter, as indicated in your letter. That was signed by Kathleen Mitchell, the chief clerk of the Energy Board. A couple weeks ago, I happened to be away on a July the 20th, and that's in your handout. I got some gas prices at 4 places. Quispamsis was 1.358. This is in dollars. St. John was $1.369. Blacks Harbor 1.382, and Grand Manan $1.43. The difference from Quispamsis to Grand Manan was 7.2 cents a liter. The difference from Blacks Harbor to Grand Manan was 4.8 cents a liter. That Friday I was away again. I just got Blacks Harbor. It was 1.369. Grand Manan was 1.417. Again, the difference of 4.8 cents per liter, which doesn't, to me, it doesn't quite, the math isn't quite the same as in the letter, the difference between 5 cents and 3.5. There's no reference in here to competition or anything. So I make a motion that the CAO do a follow-up letter to the New Brunswick Energy and Utilities Board to clarify why are we still paying a minimum of 4.8 cents per liter difference at the pumps.
Heard the motion by Councillor Russell. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Boyd. Question? All those, sorry.
That sentence you read from the letter said the difference will be no more than 5 cents? You just read one.
I'll just reread it. It says, okay, first they say I'll read the whole paragraph. In its most recent review of maximum delivery costs, matter 4.85, dated May 13, 2021, the board determined that the maximum delivery cost for the parish of Grand Manan should be held at 5 cents per liter. Please note that in the same manner, the board ruled that the maximum delivery cost for the rest of the province should be increased to 3.5 cents per liter, and so the delivery cost differential between the parish of Grand Manan and the rest of the province is less than 5 cents per liter.
Okay, I was thinking it was the pump price was less than 5 cents a liter. I just
Yeah.
half listening, I guess. Thank you.
Anyone else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded? Motion carried. All set? All right. Item 10.9, special events bylaw recommendation. Councillor Joanne Brown to speak.
Don't shoot the messenger. That's all I'm going to say. I'd like to make a motion to have a special events bylaw put in place. Also, I would like to have the first reading of the bylaw by the next council meeting. That's it.
You heard the motion by Councillor Brown. Do we have a seconder?
I second that.
Seconded by Councillor Russell. Question?
So there is no current special events bylaw, is that what we're saying?
That's correct.
And we're also saying there's no bylaw that this fits into as an amendment or anything of that sort?
I'm going to ask the CAO to address that.
The way that we handled this last weekend was the PAC met. We had a hard time finding out, from the province whose responsibility this was. Was it a council issue, or was it a planning advisory commission or committee meeting issue? So at the end of the day, it come back that it was PAC, and in that zone, it is a residential settlement mix. And in our rural plan, there's a list of everything that you can do, but under the PAC, under the Councillor Green, if you can help me out.
Community Planning Act.
The Community
55 too.
Community Planning Act, Section 55. It stated that the PAC could give special permission if anything in that zone, in their opinion, is close to an activity that is permitted. So one of the activities that is permitted in a residential settlement mix is active recreation. Passive recreation. So, in the opinion of PAC, that fit the bill. But if I might add, part of the process that we're going to go through with Dillon Consultants with rewriting our rural plan, we will have the opportunity to fix this. Maybe in a better way than coming up with a new bylaw, because with a new bylaw, like most bylaws, you're restricted to the contents of the bylaw. But with changing the wording and changing some of the zoning in our new rural plan, that they recommended it may be a better fit, but it's completely up to everyone around the table. I did reach out to Dylan over the weekend when this came up through email, and I reached out to Jennifer to see, but unfortunately she hadn't gotten back to me. She must have been busy because she is very prompt at getting back. So I'd be interested to see her comments on what she feels would be the best way to tackle this issue, whether it's through a bylaw or through the new rural plan. And I've got a feeling that it might be the rural plan, but without her opinion, we can't really say. But.
Councillor Green?
Yeah, just about all of our land planning and usages will be in the rural plan. It would be best, in my opinion, to keep all of that under that one umbrella instead of having an orphan here and something there and something there. Just keep it's all in-house in the same place. And I know that's not as quick a response as you want, but I think at the meeting we were talking of year end. Is that what she was saying?
That's
Something
her goal,
like
is
that.
by the end of the year.
Yeah, so I mean, that's, for government, that's rocket speed.
Some of the research I did on it was not many places actually have a special events bylaw, but they have an application form and it relates to the zoning. And it's 90 days notice, a description of the event, legal documents, liability insurance, that sort of thing. And it's a very simple document. Once we know what the zoning is, it should work quite well.
Anyone else? Councillor Russell?
Yeah, I don't know what we do, but we've got to do something to help with the culture here and these types of things. I mean, the hoops and the delays and everything that took place, to me, is unacceptable, is what took place. The end result, they had a great concert. But boy, to get there, I'm telling you, some people went through some stuff. Many of them here at this table spent hours and hours and hours dealing with this, right? Waiting for answers from Fredericton, and using shortcuts to get the answers. And who was participating in this? I think in the future, if the next time something happens, and there's going to be a next time, something is going to bubble up. I think the first call has to go to the mayor, and the second call has to go to the head of that committee, and work from there, and then bring in whatever players you think are necessary. I think we did a lot of things right. I think we can get better at doing some things, and I think we have to learn from this, and the next time it happens, and it will happen, we'll do it a little bit better. Thank you.
I think, though, just to be clear, the first call was to me, and so I was involved from the get-go. And I think that the timing of it was unfortunate, but there were a lot of circumstances that were beyond our control that led us to be in that situation in the timeline that we were. And I agree, it was not the optimal situation, I don't think, for anybody, but hopefully, I think we've all learned some things through that, and hopefully, as Councillor Green says, we get the rural plan done and we can address it there, have a special event form, require the 90 days, and then we've got it up front and it's all I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and none of us find ourselves in that situation again, because I know a lot of people put a lot of time in over and above regular hours, and I don't think that that went unnoticed. So at this point, we have a motion on the floor that we sort of have deviated and winded away from. So are there any more questions, comments on the motion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Okay. Motion defeated. Item 11.1, Recreation Director's Report.
If you don't mind, Madam Mayor, I'm going to take my regular post at the podium.
Go for it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As the mayor mentioned in her opening remarks, I would also like to thank Dave Burgess, who has the only license that we know of for the pyrotechnics to put off the fireworks. You know, if it wasn't for him and the fire department who helped him set them up and take them down, we wouldn't have been able to pull that off as quick as we did. So a thank you to all of them. It's been a long process with the Seal Cove Playground, even though it looks like it's completed. There's been a structure that's been missing since the start. There was like an igloo-shaped climbing structure that was delayed. It got held up in the galvanizers somewhere in the U.S. It finally arrived here a couple of weeks ago, and JIL rushed right over to get that installed. But while they were here, we also discovered that the swing set that was purchased, we purchased the Saltscape structures. Anyway, it's a special brand that they sell specifically for a location like that to help with erosion. Come to find out, the piece that we got wasn't the correct piece. Anyone to look at it would never know. But the manufacturer actually came clean and said we were sent the wrong one. So they are going to pay JL to come back, take out the existing swing set, put the new swing set back in, and move on. The good news is that the swing set that's there, which is brand new, won't be leaving Grand Manan. It'll be going probably to Victoria Park. So out of all this, we're going to get a brand new swing set. All we have to do is pay for the change in the seats, so it'll be all good. I had a call from Rotary the other day. Rotary at their last meeting voted to donate a picnic table. So they've had Ben Ossinger build a picnic table. You've all seen the ones that are out front here for the market. They're extra long. Anyway, they've got one of those made. I think delivery's supposed to come this week. We're going to chain it to something that doesn't move. Something. We're going to chain it to a post that's got lots of cement, or we're going to anchor it to one of those big rocks. So that was one of the things we were struggling with. How do we keep it where it's supposed to be? But also, we also had a request for somewhere for families or kids to go to the washroom. So we do have in the budget line item there for porta potties. We reached out to Kinghorn Septic, and we did put one down. They put one down there under one condition. The first time it ends up upside down, they're coming to get it, and it's not going back. But as far as I know, I've never had any reports of any issues, so knock on wood, it's turned out very well. Preparations are already underway for the 2021-2022 ice season. The paint and supplies have been ordered. The machine is scheduled to be turned on the 3rd of September, which is 3 weeks from Friday. Charlotte County Refrigeration has been called to give the heads up. They come down every year to commission the machine back in service. At the end of every year, they come down and do a checkup, make sure that they put all the gas, isolate that into places so we don't lose it in case there's any leaks. So they'll come back and recommission that, hopefully before the 3rd. The video cameras and the video camera signs that we installed at Victoria Park down by the new outdoor courts seems to have worked. To my knowledge, again, there hasn't been any reports of any more damage or any issues, so that's great. I had a meeting with the athletic director from GMCS. The same. It's the question every fall we get when the kids go back in school in September is high school baseball. Unfortunately, high school baseball, the only field that's suitable for them to use size-wise is the Seal Cove ball field. Last year, due to COVID, they did have a ball team. They weren't able to have any teams travel to Grand Manan, so they had no home games. So we didn't have to get Seal Cove ready. All we did was we adjusted the size of Grand Harbor so that kids could practice there. They held all their games, I believe, Councillor Russell, I think it was in Quispam or somewhere. I believe the town gave them a deal on the ball fields. So the question has come up again. Actually, we discussed it at the rec committee meeting, what to do. It's the same thing last year. I believe they had 23 or 24 names of kids that wanted to participate in high school baseball, and towards the end, they couldn't get 9 to field a team. So the question is, before we invest the money to get, if we can, get Seal Cove ready, is the commitment going to be there for the kids? So anyway, we discussed it, and the committee will continue to discuss that. The last thing I have on here is I would just like to tip my hat to Graydon in his festival. I think everything that we went through at the end of the day, I know I had a couple different meetings with Corporal Stewart, and I think at the end, I mean, he pulled it off. Everything he said he was going to do, I think he did, and he went above and beyond, and I think it turned out to be a fantastic weekend. So hopefully he'll be able to have more of those down the road. I think, like most people here, it certainly is beneficial to our community. So. The last thing I have is I just printed off our program coordinator's calendar from July 26th to August 12th. As you can see, she's very active. She's really trying to include everyone. Her numbers she's been a little frustrated. Her numbers haven't been where she'd like them. But after talking with her when she came back to the office today from her park series at the Seal Cove Beach, she was covered from head to toe in sand. Said she had 18 kids, and she was going home to have a nap. So other than that, it'd be nice to start getting some better turnouts, especially with the seniors' activities. We have been working with Tanisha just to try to figure out a way of trying to reach out to some, and I know she did reach out to the director at the program director at the nursing home to see if there's anything that she could do there, help get involved. Up till now, COVID was, there was no involvement, but she since reached out, so she's now able to go there. Unfortunately, she's still not able to take any kids there. She wanted to take some kids there and do some craft stuff like that with the residents, but so, and I think other than that, just adjusting some of her times. that she has for the activities might help to get some information out there, and I think it's very positive, so. And again, if anyone hears anything or anyone else has any suggestions to put to Tanisha, we think we should need for programming for any age or level, please feel free to reach out. And she's had great success with her hiking. A lot of tourists show up and join her with her hikes, and because they're interested to see where the trails are and where they go, and so it's great. Any questions?
Questions? Okay. Thanks, Chris.
But before I step down, I'm just going to kind of change the hats here a little bit. And some of you probably may or may not have noticed there was no notes from the CEO's desk that there normally is. I just thought where I had the podium, I might just take an opportunity just to say it's been an interesting month. I heard Rob say at one point that in 14 years, some of the stuff that we dealt with, he'd never had to deal with before. So as he looked at his watch and walked out the door, it was very encouraging. But hopefully everything has gone smoothly. I appreciate the opportunity the last 30 days to help council and especially to help Rob get through what he's going through. And thank you, I guess, is what at the end of the day. So.
Can I say something? Sure. I think I'd like to thank Chris for the way he's handled everything. It can't have been easy to move into that position, and I think he's done a really excellent job.
Well, just touching on Greg's point, Councillor Russell's point on the amount of meetings for council, I just made some notes before I come to the meeting. I wasn't sure what I was going to say, but in my 30 days, roughly 4 weeks that I've been doing this, I attended 23 meetings. 15 of those meetings were just regular scheduled meetings, like not including regular council meetings, but committee meetings and meetings we had like with the MLA and the account, stuff like that. 8 other ones were, I've met with Corporal Stewart, I went to the fire department to meet with them, I had solid waste committee, I've been to the airport to talk to Atlantic Charters over some issues we're having out there. PAC met to handle the issue with backyard music. North Head Wharf, anyway, I could go on and on, but anyway, I won't. But anyway, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. 11.2, Transportation Committee, Councillor Layton.
There's been lots going on this month, and we seem to move forward on a number of issues. Ferry increase. I have had lots of discussions with the community about this. There will be a meeting on August the 18th with Coastal Transport and DTI. One topic of conversation will be the increase in ferry fees, and we adamantly are against that. Dangerous goods, fuel shortage. A Zoom meeting was held on July the 28th. Participants from all parties were involved. Our concerns were made, solutions given. The ball's in their court. Another meeting is scheduled for August the 16th, so we'll see what happens after that. Airport. A Zoom meeting was held on July the 13th with our MLA, Andrea Anderson, Anne-Marie from RDC, and she requested additional information before committing to funding. And I believe there's been some correspondence with our acting CAO, and maybe he could bring us up to date on anything there.
Do you want me to go now?
Sure.
Okay. So yeah, after our July 13th meeting, Anne-Marie from RDC sent an email out just kind of touching on some of the points that they're looking for some information to finalize. Our airport expansion application. So basically at the end of the day, we've applied for the rehabilitation of the infrastructure for the 3,000-foot runway. But we've also added the additional 1,000 feet. So they're coming back to us saying they want us to provide rationale with the extension. So that was kind of one of the reasons why I went out to the airport for a meeting. I sat down with Paul at Atlantic Charters, because I mean, for me or for anyone to sit here and say why we need that extra 1,000 feet means nothing. But I actually went out there, and before I left, I was in the driver's seat, passenger seat, whatever side is I'm on of his vehicle, because his vehicle's, the wheel's on the wrong side, but and there we are, we're going down the runway. And he's explaining as we're going down the runway, and he's shifting gears, and we're getting faster and faster, and he's explaining, okay, this airplane's getting about ready to take off. You've got 1,000 feet left of runway before you're off the end. The next plane that we're in, you're down to 500 feet before you're off the end of the runway to make your decision. And by the time we get to the end of it, their two big planes that they have, they've got less than 250 feet from the time that their nose should be coming up before they get off the end of that runway. And to hear him explain about in the wintertime with landing and the difference in the asphalt temperature between, if any of you ever notice on the end of the runway, you've got the big numbers and the lines. The difference between the temperature of the white, where the numbers and the lines are, compared to the black and the asphalt, could mean a height difference of 3 or 4 inches in the asphalt when it shifts because of the temperature. So they have to overshoot that portion of the runway, reducing the amount of runway they have left by 200 or 300 feet. And then he also continued to tell me that the way pilots train today, they use their approach navigation system, which gives them their 5-degree flight path or whatever it might be. Don't quote me on this. But their pilots have to be trained to ignore everything they've been taught to reduce that flight path to get in faster, because if they followed that 5-degree flight path, they're going to be halfway down the runway and they're not going to have anywhere near enough runway left. So to get Paul's take on that was a great exercise for me, and at the end of the day, I said, if I could get you to put this on paper, to have you explain that to these people here is going to be way more advantage than me trying to remember what you told me and me put it on paper, because these people have the expertise and the terminology that these people are looking for to rationale why we need to increase that runway from 3,000 feet to 4,000 feet. As well, one of the other things is they were looking for, I believe in the package as well, there's a quote from Brunswick Engineering, because the end of that runway, they add the extra 1,000 feet, we're going to be encroaching in the buffer zone for wetland. We're not going through wetland, but we're going to be, like all wetlands, they give us I believe it's a 100-meter buffer outside of the wetlands. So we're going to be encroaching slightly within the buffer. So we need a third party, Brunswick Engineering, to come up to give us the plan that says exactly what we're going to be doing and where we're going to be doing. That's one of the first things we've got to do before this application goes anywhere else. So.
Thank you. That's great. Okay, on to our roads. We have scheduled a meeting with District Supervisor Dave Thompson and Council to discuss the many issues we as a community face in our daily commutes. The village will be responsible for part of the costs, and information needs to be brought forward from the province, specifically the asset management report for our roads. This would be the first step in realizing the cost associated with the new highway, and we should be able to start budgeting funds accordingly. I met with District Supervisor Al Ackerson, Bridge Superintendent Morris Gullison, and our Highway Supervisor Dennis Green on the side of the road one day randomly. Anyway, we visited a washout along the lawn bank. They've identified the problem and will be contracted locally. The funding for this will come from DTI and not the village. I would like to add Andrea Mason has been instrumental in moving things through the different levels of government, and her attention is appreciated by the village, and we look forward to working through these issues with her. Now, since our last council meeting, we've had another culvert failure across Bloomisher Brook adjacent to the Sandy Flag property. Truck traffic has been rerouted through Grand Harbor, adding another 18 kilometers to the delivery of quarry materials. Approximately 1,500 truckloads that's going to have to go through the school zone for the North Head Basin project. So it seems at the end of the day we have the opportunity of one bridge before September. So I would like to make a motion for the village to direct DTI to prioritize Bloomisher Brook over the current Millbrook project.
You heard the motion by Councillor Layton. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Greenlaw. Question.
Question, do you sit by? Sorry. Are they committing to do it in that time frame, or is that just
nobody's
a hope?
committed to anything yet, but the bridge building stops in September till April, I believe. So there's nothing goes on after that. So if it's going to happen, it has to happen soon. And I think they're on board for it, but I can't speak for the province.
So my understanding was that the Blumisher one was going to be a culvert replacement. Has that changed?
That has changed. Anything over a 3-foot culvert has to be a bridge now.
Okay.
Councillor Boyd?
Is there a way that we can do like a full-on permanent bridge structure on the Blumisher Brook and also maybe get like a one-lane Bailey Bridge set up on the dock?
Our district supervisor will be here soon, so maybe he could shed some light on that for us, possibly, but I don't know, Dan. It would be great, and I know a lot of people are going to be concerned over sidestepping that bridge and moving on, but I think the most important issue is to fix this and move ahead with our project in North Head.
Anybody else?
Yeah, if I may, the Dock Road and Hill Road failures have both been sent in for WAWAS, which is the water course alteration. So they're both sent at the same time, so they're hoping to get the approval for them at the same time. But what they're left with is they already have a bridge structure built. So they're saying, we've got one ready. As soon as the Wawa comes back, we got the bridge structure ready. Where do you want it to go? The Wawa takes the most time. So if they get the approval on that, it's just a matter of getting another structure built and brought in. So my conversation with Dave Thompson 2 weeks ago was they're hoping, if council wanted to get Hill Road fixed, and very shortly after, before the end of the construction season, which could possibly be September, is have the other bridge structure built, because the stuff that takes the time, which is the environmental stuff, would already be done. So
this is a shared cost thing, or this is all under our road improvement upgrade stuff?
that was a question that was asked. It was also a question that went to our MLA. There's a document floating around somewhere, which is the agreement between DTI and the Village of Grand Manan. No one's been able to find it yet. No one here around this table has been able to find it yet. I believe our MLA has it, and we've requested a copy because our question was, a culvert replacement is maintenance, which would be a 50-50 split between DTI and the Village of Grand Manan. A new bridge is a capital project, which is a provincial asset. So the question is, are we responsible to pay 50% of a new capital project and an asset for the province?
And there's no answer to that yet.
No.
Anyone else? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Oh, before Councillor Russell goes, and we leave the transportation, I think it would be prudent if we had a motion to contract Brunswick Engineering to do the wetland study at the airport to go with our application. The cost is $18,000 plus HST. If someone would like to make that motion.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councillor Boyd. Question.
I have a question, it's related to the airport, so I'm going to, because I want to, there must be somewhere in the federal aviation law somewhere that if you have a certain size plane, it needs a certain size runway. You know, I know you're talking to the pilots and that and what they need to do to get in and out of Grand Manan, but surely under the federal aviation laws, whatever, there must be some recommendation as how we you know,
It's based on the acceleration speed of the plane and the deceleration, like depending on if you're coming in or leaving, and the size of the plane. It's a combination of the two. So it's not like if you have this big a plane, like it's not just based on dimensions or whatever, it's based on the actual speed that they need to be at for liftoff or for landing. So-
yeah, but I would think with the experience they have with airplanes and runways, that somewhere, someone must know
It
what
is,
size
but
runway.
it's based on those two
Oh, yeah,
things.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
not just-
irregardless what it's based on, someone must, there must
Yeah.
be a piece of paper somewhere
it
says
is.
if you've
It
got
is.
this sort of plane, this is what the recommended runway is.
Yep.
That's all I'm saying. I
It's-
mean,
it's
it's
there.
good to get the pilot input in your test run, your test flight.
But one thing I did learn in my trip to the airport was one of the biggest issues that affects our air ambulance service with the provincial plane coming in compared to the local charter company taking over, not only is the weather, but is air temperature. The local planes, when they're sourcing these planes, they're sourcing planes which runs outside of the normal air temperature, because from what my understanding, the air ambulance plane that comes from the province, anything over a certain temperature, the performance of that plane very quickly reduces. So instead of that plane, like Councillor Turner said, in the book it says it decelerates so fast between a certain distance. But if you get up over a certain temperature, that could all of a sudden be decreased by 40%. So all of a sudden, the air ambulance plane, because the air temperature, it cannot physically get in. So that's why they have to put it out so much to the local charter company.
And all this will go into the reply to your email as to, you know, the reasons why and all that, yeah.
Yep, I'm hoping to get several pages of.
Yeah, and it's the provincial air ambulance been contacted for their input and all that with respect to Graham and Ann?
Yes,
Oh,
and we
okay.
have and we have numbers. One of the other things that they were requesting was numbers. So we have numbers from both Ambulance New Brunswick and Atlantic Charters on, you know, roughly so many flights in and out over the past so many years. So.
Any other questions on the motion? All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried. Item 12.1, approval to pay the following invoices from the general operating fund. Councillor Brown, sorry. So the first item is for Fluelling Press. It's a reimbursement to Kenny Ingersoll for the Long Eddy plaque for $7,235.95. Dillon Consulting for the Rural Plan Update, $2,875. Dutchman Contracting for pea gravel for the parks, $2,470.90. Island Home Hardware, the June statement is $11,122.10. And we had the additions of FX Fireworks for the fireworks for $7,500 and AARC for the runway crack seal for $20,820.12. So I'm looking for a motion to pay those.
Can I ask something? No.
Sure.
What is a $7,000 plaque? What is that?
That is to commemorate the work that Lori did for both Swallowtail and Long Eddy, but I believe it'll be placed at Long Eddy in her memory. So.
Is it there?
No, but my understanding is that they're having a memorial for her at the museum this weekend, and it'll be unveiled then, so it'll be there after that.
Good.
Okay. Councillor Russell?
Yeah, just, can you give a little more detail on the Island Home Hardware?
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I would move that we pay
Oh.
the invoices as
Okay.
read.
Sure. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Boyd. Okay, and now your question is for more detail on the Island Home Hardware invoice.
Yeah, is that related to the skateboard park?
That is lumber and everything out there for the skate park.
Okay, thank you.
And so we'll be sending that invoice to RDC to get half of that money back.
Anything else? All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried. We'll wait for Councillor Brown to come back till we. Oh, it's okay. And it's apparently item number 13, not 12. But let's face it, nobody wants to be item number 13, so we might as well have two 12s. So item number 13 is closed session where we have a personnel issue. Do we have a motion?
I would move we go to closed session to discuss a couple personnel issues.
Heard the motion by Councillor Green. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Turner. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried. Thanks. Recall this regular council meeting of the Village of Grand Manan to order. We were in closed session to talk about a personnel issue.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we continue Chris in the acting CAO position, and this to be reviewed on October 4th.
You heard the motion by Councillor Green. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Fitzsimmons. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. The next regular council meeting of the Village of Grand Manan will be September the 13th at 7:30 PM. Motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Fitzsimmons.
You have the pleasure of seconding it.
Seconded by Councillor Russell. All those in favor?
Oh, yeah. Aye, 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 aye.
Meeting